Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below, your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see here on our channel, our website, or our social media. Reach out to me directly, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Today we're discussing a 2020 release, now available pre-owned. This is the Tag Heuer Carrera Chronograph Calibre Heuer 02. Numero 2 is a 44mm stainless steel watch with a ceramic bezel in blue, a blue dial to match, and of course the movement once known as the CH80, now the Heuer 02, their best chronograph caliber. Stainless steel, 44mm, 15.3mm thick, and if we measure lug to lug, 49.2mm. If we measure solid end link to solid end link, the total distance across the wrist is a beefy 52.6 with a 22mm spacing between the lugs. Throw it on my 16cm circumference wrist, and I would say you probably don't want to wear this watch on a wrist smaller than 15 centimeters circumference. It's not quite at the edge of my wrist, but it's getting there. You will note the bracelet still splays out a little bit, so down to 15 centimeters, I think you're all right. The watch is not particularly thin, but nor is it offensively thick. It'll fit underneath the jacket cuff, if not the absolute tightest of dress sleeves. This watch, of course, with a handsome set of thrusting, jutting, angular, integrated Carrera-style lugs, but we'll revisit those in a moment. There's a bracelet with a conforming end link, and then you can see the bracelet features staggered link alignment, finish, and size, polished outer faces, satin finished primaries, polished longitudinal, or I should say rather, polished horizontal bars that run with wonderful depth. As you can see, there are recessions in between the links to add a third dimension rarely seen on bracelets, which tend to have basically height and width but not depth. And then you can see that the removable links are held by pins and sleeves, so you'll use your punch and block to size this. You'll also note there is a half link built in on both sides, and it is a single fold twin trigger deploying clasp. So you press both triggers and then the clasp pops open. So it's not a friction fit and there's no cheap clamshell. Trigger is how I like to see clasps actuated. The case band itself is surprisingly nuanced. I didn't expect it to have this much invert tumble home. As you can see, the edge of the case is farther out than the base, so it kind of rolls inboard even as it slopes from end to end. The result is quite handsome, surprisingly sophisticated for a watch that at first glance seemed to be rather sheer of side, like a Rolex Super Case. Now you also note that the lugs are nicely integrated, as they have been on every Carrera model since the first in 1963. You'll also note that there's a little bit of faceting on the end of the lugs on this model, as well as satin finish that runs on the lug hoods, but there's also a little bit of a flare, a step out abreast the bezel that adds another degree of visual articulation to the case, as well as contrast of materials. Now when you look at the ceramic bezel, which is super hard and resists scratching, you can see it's double finished with the conical portion outboard satin finished, and then the flatter portion on the top highly polished and glossy. You can see there's a tachometer, which in conjunction with the chronograph can be used to gauge the speed of an object. Between the start and stop of a kilometer or a mile, no units are given, so you make the choice. The dial does feature exceptional depth with dished registers featuring concentric patterns or azurage. The dial, of course, is blue to match the bezel. It's a dark metallic, and you can see, rather than printed features, here we have cantilevered rhodium-plated steel indices. There will be a loom shot. Note that there's also a rayhaut or a raised chaptering outboard. So not only do we have a bilateral symmetry to the style, but we also have wonderful depth. It looks and feels expensive. Now there's a date down at 6 o'clock, and I should mention a few features. The watch, which is 100 meters water resistant, includes stop seconds, and we'll make sure we're not in the date change danger zone right there. But the watch also includes, alongside stop seconds or hacking, a quick set date function so you can rapidly cycle. The watch also includes a vertical clutch mechanism for the chronograph, so you can see the chronograph starts without any jump. It doesn't have that lateral clutch flaw, and because it is a vertical clutch, there's no additional wear and tear if you want to leave the chronograph running full time, so you can have your seconds, your minutes, and your hours on the dial side. As you can see, the crown features the Tag Heuer logo, and both crown and chronograph pushers feature a little bit of contrasting black PVD as well as steel and polish. And when you flip it all over, you can see the Heuer 02. Now this was the follow-up to the Seiko-based 1887. They carried over some of the best features from that Seiko-based caliber, including the vertical clutch and crisp column wheel architecture. The column wheel, which you can see just at the top of your screen, makes for very crisp actuation of the mechanism. Now it beats away at 28,800 vibrations per hour, and as you can see, it uses, let me try to get the rotor out of the way there. There we go. It uses Edicron for the regulator, which means it can be adjusted very precisely indeed. This automatic winder has an 80-hour power reserve, which is superb, and if for whatever reason you've got a rotational watches, you're a collector, you don't necessarily have to pick this watch up every single day to reset it, and that's a nice feature to have. There's a lot to love about this movement. 33 jewels, constructed at a factory that Tag built just to make this movement. It is a real Tag caliber, and right now, their flagship mechanical movement. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details. And we're back with the Tag Heuer Carrera caliber Heuer 02 by night, plenty of lume.